it's going to be close. Always feels a little bit sort of special when you go through a farmer's gate. Almost like you're not allowed to be there. Here we go. We are nearly there. And I am buzzing. One of the main reasons why I love fishing so much is the uncertainty. You don't know whether you're going to get a bite. If you do get a bite, you're not 100% certain what it's going to be. On a still water, I expect to catch. You know everything's within that 1, 2, 3, 4 acres. But here they could literally be hundreds and hundreds of yards away from you. And I love that. You've got to hunt them. Who needs coffee when you've got something like that to look forward to, eh? Whoop. Well, you've probably guessed it. We're at the River Wye. And I'll tell you what, she looks ever so sexy. Oh yeah. The old romantic saying, absence makes the heart grow fonder, definitely works in the relationship, because I know my missus loves me a lot more when I'm not there. But it also works for fishing. And I know we've made many films here before, but I genuinely only come down here a couple of times a year. So every single time feels like the first. Behind me is Home Fishery. I've never seen this stretch before in my entire life, so I'm going to be learning on the job. Hopefully feeder fishing for the barbel, and if we can find an area, float fishing for the chub. But whatever happens over the next 2 days, you guys are going to be with us, and I can guarantee we'll have a little bit of fun, because that's the one thing I always have down here. The biggest mistake most people make on the Wye is they drop into the first great looking swim that they see, spend too much time there and waste most of the day. With my approach, that just doesn't happen. Nice. Right, well, this is potential swim number 1. I don't want to spread myself too thin today, but I do want to try and get my money's worth from the stretch and find probably 3 or 4 potentials. I like exercise, I love fishing. If I can combine the two, then that's a brilliant day for me. But I'm just going to wander around every one of the swims that I feel like has potential, try to identify where I think the fish are going to feed, and just give them a few pellet. Not too much, I don't want to feed them, I want to catch them today, but I just want them sort of searching around, having a look for some freebies, and then when I come back in to fish it, I'll put the cherry on the cake with a feeder. We are literally inches from the boundary of the fishery, and I like to inspect every single inch of it just to make sure I've not missed anything. And quite frankly, I may have found a biblical barbel holding area. We've got a gravelly island in the middle with oxygenated pacey water on the far side and on the near side. We've got the confluence of both flows meeting with a crease and slack water on the inside, which will bore the bottom out, which will give them a little bit of depth. That plus the oxygenated water. A swim like this you don't need to feed, you don't need to prep it, they tend to live here. But clearly we can't fish it from where we are because we're 15 foot above the water, so we need to get a little bit more adventurous, but I do have a plan. Stay tuned. Rivers like this can feel like big sheets of water if your watercraft isn't on point, and you can only get that through experience. You physically can't buy it in a tackle shop. And it's another reason why I love fishing so many swims, because I'm always improving my own watercraft. You can never learn enough. Well, this is an absolute no-brainer for me. These groins are scattered all the way up and down the river, and obviously they're not put here for the barbel, more so for the salmon. But they are barbel holding spots, but you have to be a little bit more picky. This is brilliant. We've got all the pace on the near side, creating a bit more depth. This groin creates an epic crease right the way across the river. Just follow that bubble line, you can see it all the way down, and really they could be sitting here or 30 yards downstream. So all I'm going to do is pepper a little bit of bait right the way along that crease, and when I come in here I'm just going to gradually work my way down it. Pretty much every stretch I've ever fished on the River Wye swims like this. Decent bet. So whether this has got any track record or not, I don't know, but it's definitely worth an hour today. And with the pace on the far side, it might actually be a contender for a bit of float fishing. We'll see. Probably the most exciting part of the fishing on the Wye is the first cast. It's a good 3-hour drive for me to get here, so the anticipation and the excitement grows every single mile I get closer. But also, once you've prepped the swim, you're expecting a quick bite. Now this is the swim that I actually baited up first this morning, and generally as a rule of thumb, what I'm looking to do is give them free bait and time to gain confidence for about an hour. And so that's normally why I start with the very first swim that I baited up. From here, because I'm going to spend sort of 20 minutes, half an hour having a couple of chucks, seeing if I get some signs, hopefully catching a fish. That gives me the option of moving between any of the other swims in any order that I want. But for now, I've chose this one. It sees a lot of foot traffic, which means it sees a little bit of bait as well. And hopefully there's a few fish get caught from here. And hopefully it won't take too long. So in with the feeder, first chuck. In like a dream. That'll be on. 1 minute 28. It ain't big, but it's a sign that I was looking for. It looked a bit chubby, this swim, to be fair, and this is definitely a chub. But it's the first bite on a new stretch. No matter how big them chub are, they always go for the inside. There we go. 2 minutes 15, first fish in the net. And it literally is as easy as that. Watch. If you've left a swim that's been primed for at least an hour, particularly on the River Wye, that first cast will tell you an awful lot of things about that swim. If you catch a fish real quick and then go in for a couple of chucks over the top of it with absolutely no signs, you're clearly not on any volume of fish. Well, best laid plans and all that. I genuinely thought there was a few bites in here. Didn't know what they'd be. But after catching one in 90 seconds and then having 3 more chucks with very few signs, I'm doing the off. Right, take 2. And if you're sitting in that first swim all day, waiting for the barbel to turn up in the evening, you might catch a few. I don't doubt that. But the River Wye can become a very big river, and it can be a very long day. It was clear to me pretty soon that there weren't a volume of fish there, and if there were, they weren't prepared to feed. So that's why I bait so many areas, because there's always another chance. Yes. It's not a great day for barbel fishing or chub fishing, to be fair. It's low, it's clear. That is why we come to the River Wye. It don't matter how many miles you have to cover, how many swims you have to bait, how many chucks you have to make. And sometimes it don't even matter whether it's a chub or a barbel. at that moment, when that wraps round, is absolutely priceless. My confidence levels have literally just shot up. Oh, it is a barbel, bless it. We've probably caught the smallest chub in the river today, and now we've probably caught the smallest barbel. Oh, what are you doing? But you've got to start somewhere, and that's a great sign. We found one. Wonderful. I bring absolutely everything, including the kitchen sink with me down here to the River Wye, because I never know what I'm going to be faced with. However, when I'm fishing, I like to travel light, compact, and be super prepared. Tackle-wise, when we're talking about hardware, you need to bring a reel down that's going to be loaded up with 10-pound drag line. It is belt and braces line. It's not going to let you down. It's as strong as an ox. Dropping down from that to an 8 or even a 6 is not going to get you extra bites. It's just not worth taking that risk. Here today, because the river's so low and slow, I'm using the 12-foot Aventus with the 5-ounce distance tip in it. That seems to be absolutely perfect. But with a little bit of water on, step up to the 13-foot, still with a 5-ounce, and that will deal with the bigger leads and the slightly faster, heavier, deeper flow. When it comes down to the actual mechanics of the rigs, it's ever so simple. I have literally got a micro leg clip with the swivel just pinched down so it's fished running. That running is extremely important. It gives you so much more feedback when you're sitting there waiting behind a rod, the feeder's in or the lead, depends on what you actually want to fish on it, but it gives you so much more indication as to how many small fish are in the swim, whether you're getting liners. A fixed lead on rivers can work if that's your thing, but for me, I like it running so I know exactly what's happening at the hook end. Up to there is pretty standard stuff, but from the swivel down, the hook link is where it gets a little bit more interesting. Generally, I don't really mess around. I come down here with 10-pound 0.30 pure. It does the job. I know I can catch chub and barbel with it. I know it's going to be strong enough to land 3-pounders all the way up to 13-pounders, and I've had in the past, not from the River Wye, but fish a lot bigger than that on it as well. But 3 foot seems to be a really nice starting length. If you're getting a load of feeder knocks, you want to catch a few chub, shorten it down to 18 inches, absolutely not a problem. But the 3 foot seems to be a really nice starting point. Then down to the hook. Now, you've probably heard me say this many a time before, but it's a size 10 MWGB. I use it absolutely everywhere for my barbel fishing, from the Trent to the Lee to the Kennet, and certainly up here on the Wye where we actually did all the testing for them. They've never let me down. They seem to have absolutely every single property that you want in a barbel hook. They're inconspicuous on the bottom, they're super sharp, they've got a slightly in-turn point, which means on the gravelly bottoms they don't blunt too often, and they are just so strong. Onto the hair. Now that can be quite important. If you want to catch everything in the swim from 6-ounce chub all the way up to double figure barbel, then by all means have the bait nice and tight to the shank. But if you want to avoid those chub, then think about slightly lengthening that hair and fishing the bait a little bit further off the shank. Chub tend to have sort of beak mouths as opposed to protrusible mouths, so they don't suck baits in, they'll pick at them. That way, you'll get a pang on the rod tip where the bait's been picked up, but it won't have the hook in its mouth at the same time, and it will leave it there a little bit longer so that the barbel can come along afterwards and suck the lot in. Real simple stuff, but it does the job, trust me. Very rarely do I use my chair, because if I do, I get too comfortable, and if I get too comfortable, I don't move enough. The one thing you can't do on a big river like this is get downhearted if it's not going your way. I've caught from as many swims as I've blanked in. You're not tied to a swim though, remember? We put a bit of gear in here this morning, and actually this is the only swim that we saw any real activity. Didn't see any barbel, but we saw a chub, and right now I will take a chub. Right. Let's do this. Generally, in coloured water, you can get bites right the way through the day. It's not so important to stay here until last light. But when it's low and clear like we've had on this trip, then dusk is absolutely king. Oh. Oh, that's when you absolutely need a camera crew in your swim, because that rod would have gone. I'm just getting some pellets out to ping over the top to see if we get any liners. Because quite often you ping pellets over the top of your rod. If the chub are coming up and really active, just get just a few bangs, give you a bit of confidence. And quite often it can spur a bite. But luckily enough, that rod didn't go missing, and we've got a fish on. I don't know what it is. It's moving a bit quick for a chub, but it don't feel that heavy to be a barbel. I think we're a chub, aren't we? Who cares? On a day when, quite frankly, oh, it ain't. It's a barbel. On a day when, really, it doesn't strike me that the river's been fishing well, I will take every single one. And that, ladies and gents, is why you never give up. Well, it's not been prolific and we ain't had any big uns, but literally on a river that just didn't want to give up its jewels throughout the day, at witching hour, it is the most important thing for a river angler. See out the daylight, because right now is when quite often rivers just come alive. Right, you go back, because I genuinely think there's another bite in this swim. There we go, darling. See you when you're 10 pound. Well, there was one more bite in this swim. We had to wait a little bit longer, but I can almost guarantee this is a barbel because it's going for Monmouth. Definitely a better fish. They have a habit of starting to swim upstream and hugging the bottom, and that's exactly what this one's done. Come on, sweetheart. Oh dear. I know it's reasonably dark, and I ain't seen a decent barbel all day, but that don't look half bad. And I'll tell you what, in this slightly shallower water, they don't half hang on. Right, I'm going out to get you. Come on. Come on, darling. You're still not having it, are you? Oh, look at the head on that. That's a big fish at the right time of year. Come on. Just come say hello for a couple of seconds. Oh, still not having it. Up you come, up you come, up you come. In you go. Barbel ain't called the prince of the river for nothing. They fight hard, they look great. They are just absolutely spectacular. They are the Formula One fish of the river. And for me, it's the pinnacle. Well, we all have those red letter days when they're all massive, but most of the time, it only takes one fish to make a trip. And let me tell you, this is that fish. And you've got to remember, these are wild venues and you can easily be 100, 200 yards away from them. And at times today, I bet I was. But eventually we found a pocket and we've nailed a good one. And guess where I'm starting in the morning? Right here. Thank you, darling. You are an absolute bruiser for the Y. Gosh, lovely jubbly. We're back in the same swim, obviously, but I have a plan. We're going to have a couple of chucks here because this is the swim that gave us the most action yesterday, and it seems weird not to start again here, but also because this is the swim that we're going to use to get to possibly the best barbel swim I've seen on this stretch, right at the bottom of the end. So let's have a first chuck. The old gardeners are out as well, so we're not on our own. It's important to reference that it's become a bit of a fashion at the moment, possibly because a lot of people fishing the commercials for playing fish with your rod tips down, just like that. And you're fishing for fish that generally love holding bottom, and on that bottom there is plenty of snags, rocks, branches, loads of stuff that could easily cut you off. There's no place for all of that on the River Wye or big rivers in general. What you want to be doing is keeping that rod tip up to try and get your feeder in the net. Come on, darling. The feeder and that fish's chin up as quick as possible and as safe as possible. Your imagination can run wild with you when it comes to bait, and I'm sure many people do many different things on here and catch loads of fish. Whatever works between your ears, 9 times out of 10 will work in the river. So let's talk bait, a subject that an awful lot of people get confused about, and I think simply because there are so many options. When we arrived, I wandered around and identified as many swims as I wanted to fish, and all I pinged out was large Hinders ellipse pellets. Now, I've been around these rivers and I've bait dropped hemp and I've bait dropped crush pellet and I've done all manner of funky different things, and do I think that made a difference at the time? Of course I did. But actually, I've had just as many simple, perfect results just pinging large pellets, just getting them fish mooching around on the spot that later on you're going to go into and you are going to deliver the cherry on the cake. Now, for this trip, we're using the gripper feeder, and in the gripper feeder, I'm using my favourite combination of ground bait. It is the Sweet Marine and it is the Barbel Bomb. Now, the way I actually mix my ground bait up is very much dictated by the river conditions. Where it's low, clear and quite slow at the moment, I've got it mixed up reasonably dry. That said, I'm still really jamming it into that feeder, because where I'm fishing a feeder and I'm looking to chuck every sort of 15 to maximum 20 minutes, I'm wanting that ground bait to work all the way through that period. And so what I don't want to do is that feeder to hit the deck and then everything to puff out within 2 or 3 minutes, and then I'm left pretty much with a single hook bait. As soon as that feeder's empty, for me, I need to rechuck. So even though I've mixed it up reasonably dry, just because we're in low, clear, slow conditions, I'm jamming it in there, so over that 20-minute period, it's working all the time. In amongst the ground bait, I've simply got a mixture of ellipse pellets from small to medium, and I've got the mainline PVA bag and pellet mix. Really tiny little pellets that will break down a hell of a lot sooner, releasing a lot of attraction. This is the cherry on the cake, like I said. And so what I really want is minimal food content, maximum punch. On the hair, however, I like my hook baits to stand out from the rest. I want it to be the most attractive thing in that swim. So when them fish are mooching around, yes, they're looking for my pellet here, yes, they're looking for the cherry on the cake, the feeder, but really I want them on that hook bait as soon as possible. Now, I've got a variety of different baits for different rivers, for different glugged I've got some that are glugged up in goo, some that are glugged up in what I call gravy, and they're all prepared at the very least 6 months in advance. These bad boys are actually 18 months old, and if you look, they've got what I call a beautiful gravy all the way around the outside, which gives them maximum pulling power. No need for paste if you prepare them in advance. That there is going to kick off attraction for at least 15 to 20 minutes, pulling them fish right in to your rig, the dangerous end. That, for me, is as basic and as simple, but as effective as you need to be on rivers like this. On big rivers, they're not riggy, they're not massively baity, you just need to find them. There we go. Don't even think I've started my stopwatch on this one. Where there's very little pace on the river at the moment, I'm able to fish quite direct to the feeder, so the bites are ever so direct as well. Super. Well, I said one more cast, 20 minutes, either a fish or a move. But to be fair, hello darling, it seems like we've had a rig in the water for about 5 minutes and we've had 2 fish. And bless it, that is probably the oldest chub in the river. Well, I tell you what, that'd be a banger on the float, wouldn't it? Look at that. Absolutely stunning. Thank you, darling. Just slip you back. Right, last bite from this swim and we're doing the off. But what a great start to the day so far, eh? 3 chucks, 3 bites. Just goes to show that as good as them swims looked yesterday, we really weren't on them. And summer fishing can be like that. You rove around, fish the best looking creases, the rapids and all of that, but sometimes you just got to find where they want to be, and I'll be honest with you, this certainly wasn't my first choice. But if they're here, that's where we got to be. And if we hadn't have roved around and fished several different swims, then we certainly wouldn't have found them. Come on, darling. I'm going to say it's only a chub. They are pretty much my favourite species. But they don't half pull on this river, especially this time of year. Thank you, darling. What a belter. Still going. Most people won't get this or even believe it, but if I drop in a swim and I 3 and 3 put-ins, then my initial reaction is to put a little bit more bait in, tee a few more up, and then go and have a wander and give it a rest for an hour, because I want to experience every single one of the swims on that stretch. I would rather catch 5 fish from 5 swims than 25 fish from 1. Well, I told you I had a plan, and this swim looks just as good down here as it did up there. I absolutely love stuff like this. Let's just hope after all that effort, there's one sitting down there waiting for me, eh? Ugh. Wonderful. We designed, developed and pretty much produced the gripper feeder for this type of fishing. Rooney and I came down here many moons ago and we was actually casting the feeders at a stone on the far bank to see if we could smash them to bits. We damaged them, but they still worked after an hour of complete abuse. They are absolutely perfect for this. They come in 2 sizes, and for the vast majority of the fishing, I fish the large one because I'm filling it with scent and not a lot of food. I just want to pull them fish in as quickly as possible, and in my mind, the big one does it better than the little one. But if I want to cast a little bit further, that small one flies like a rocket. There we go. Said they live there. For those that have never caught a barbel, the bite, the 4-foot twitch, we've spoke about many times. And the way I try to describe it for people that have never experienced it is that it's like going to a rock and roll concert, but everything being on mute. When that rod tip slams round, it does it with such vigour and aggression, you expect there to be a noise, a thunder. It doesn't happen, but you do feel it when you grab hold of the butt. Look at it. Absolutely stunning. Middle of the River Wye, quite literally, on a gravel island, with two beautiful pacey streams either side of me. It isn't big, but it really doesn't matter. Because if you want big ones, you don't come here. You come here because you can get action like this on a place as beautiful as this, whilst getting a little bit adventurous like this. Oh yes, oh yes, in every way, oh yes. That was biblical. Now this isn't a massive fish, and for us we're just going to keep it in the water, have a grip and grin, and then put it back, which is absolutely perfect. But if this is a photograph fish for you, or whatever size is a photograph fish for you, then make sure that right now is when you give them the recovery. Don't whip them out the water onto the mat, unhook them, take the photograph, and then spend 10 or 15 minutes nursing them back to health. That's the wrong way of doing it. This, straight after the fight, is when they need the oxygenated water, when they need the rest. Same with you guys, so spend that time getting your camera, your wave sling, your scales ready, calling your mate so we can come down and do the photograph, setting your tripod up if you're going to do selfies, whilst the fish is recovering. That way, when you put it back later on after the weighing and the photographs, generally they go back within a couple of minutes. Best case scenario for me though, is where your wellies or your waders or your chesties, and don't even take them out of the water, because for this one, he's been resting for probably 5 minutes now after that epic battle. Yes, it's lively, and yes, it can be like holding a bar of soap sometimes. But this is the future of the river, and you never know, in a few years' time, it could be 10 or 11 pound. That's just magic, absolutely magic. People that have never done this type of fishing, it is nothing like fishing a feeder on a still water. It is completely different. Once that feeder's hit the bottom, even in low clear conditions like this when the river's not moving that fast, if you tighten straight up to that feeder, the pressure of the river pushing left to right or right to left will definitely move that feeder, doing a few things. Spreading your bait all over the swim, which minimises your chances of getting a bite, or certainly slows them down, and then rolls your feeder 9 times out of 10 into a snag, which costs you a fair few quid. What you have to do, regardless of conditions on a river, is start to pay out a boa line. The deeper and faster the flow, the bigger the bow needs to be. But remember, once you've paid out a nice big boa line, you're probably not going to get one of those 4-foot twitches. It will be a thump over, a drop back, then you lift into it and wind down the slack. No, no, no. There you go. I should have given you a bit of bait to put in. You can't be far off, Reddy. Goes to show that the canoes pretty much affect us more than the fish. God, dear oh dear. Unbelievable power. Come on. Oh, that last roll. There you go. Yes. Well, if I can paraphrase a famous TV show, I love it when a plan comes together. It looked good yesterday when I saw this swim, and it hasn't failed to produce. 2 fish from this swim is enough excitement for me. And the river's getting a little bit busy, so I'm going to go for another wander and see if we can do things a little bit different. For me, the middle of the day is the prime time to fish the float on a river like this, because morning and evening, feeder is by far the most effective method. Them fish are down there, they're actively searching. But in the middle of the day, they definitely back off the feeder. And I found that a moving bait, particularly up in the water for the chub, really can get you extra bites. Right, that should do. Probably 10-15 minutes of free grub just gone over the top, and whether I'm float fishing or I'm feeder fishing, time spent preparing a swim is really, really important to try and gain their confidence. Now, one of the main reasons why I've actually chose to fish a pellet waggler or a waggler in general as opposed to a stick float is because, one, I'm fishing quite a way across the river, so far bank fishing for me is all about bottom end only floats because they cast much better. But secondly, we've got hardly any pace, so really we're kind of pellet waggler fishing like you would on a still water, and the setup is exactly the same. I've got a 12-foot pellet waggler Aventus rod. I've got a 4000 size reel with 4-pound pulse. Loop to 017 end gauge. I've got a pellet in a band. I've got the new Specie hooks in size 10s, so I ain't messing around because potentially you still could hook barbel on this because I'm gonna start quite shallow, but just deepen off sort of 4 or 5 inches every other chuck because you never really know where in the swim they're sitting. But because we've got very little flow, we've not got an awful lot of tow, so I'm just letting this go through at race pace. And I've got a 6.5 gram foam waggler. These things are absolutely perfect. They go in with a really sexy little plip and they do not dive. They stay straight on the surface, so you're fishing right from the very first second. So it's quite simple. If you've ever fished a pellet waggler on a still water, then you can definitely do it in a swim like this for chub and barbel. And this is my first chuck. Whenever you're float fishing, never feed directly across stream or even upstream. That's even worse because quite frankly, if you get the fish going, they'll come up right underneath the bait. So always favour fishing downstream. 1 or 2 o'clock on a clock face would be absolutely perfect. As a general rule of thumb, you need a decent bit of pace and you don't really want to be too far out if you're going to be fishing a stick float. Whereas if you are casting to the far bank, you haven't got too many windy conditions and the pace of the river isn't too fast, which means you don't have to mend the line too much, then a waggler is the perfect choice. Specifically, if you want to catch them on a nice slow falling bait. Float fishing on the river is, there you go, possibly my favourite method, and this is the reason, because that strike, you trap the line between the spool and your fingers and then you close the bail arm, and don't matter who you are, that moment right there, that 1 second just takes me back to my childhood. That is absolute gold. Come on, what are you? Unsurprising, it's a chub. In you come, nice and simple, nice and that's fishing. I love a 4-foot twitch, but I also love float fishing on rivers for chub. I'm not going to count my chickens yet because he may well be the only one in the swim, but I doubt it. Get your own back all you want. That 5 minutes of fun was absolutely worth it. Come on, look at that. What an absolute banger. Thank you very much, darling. You've made my afternoon, you really have. One of the most important parts of float fishing, whether it's stick float or waggler fishing like this, is trying to get into a rhythm. And all I'm doing is I'm pinging 3 pellets just before every single chuck. And just leading it down, feathering it nicely over the top, trying to get those chub up in the water to aggressively attack it, just like that. Best laid plans and all that. You've got to imagine what those fish are hearing and seeing and thinking when they're in that water. They're coming up every single time you're pinging them freebies. 2 or 3 pellets, that's all they're hearing. And so when that pellet waggler goes over the top, there's 2 little plips. One with the pellet waggler going in and the other one with the pellet flicking out. It's one of the reasons why it's really important to feather it and stop it so you get that separation. It makes a really sexy noise and they will literally just start coming up and aggressively competing for it. Almost looks like exactly the same fish. Nailed in the top lip, beautiful. There we go. This is banging. Like this is heaven for me, it really is. I'll take them all day long, I really will. Chub has always been one of my favourite species, right from an early age, because I used to chase them up and down. I thought they were grass carp because they look so big, but in realistic terms, they were probably only 2 or 3 pounds. But I was so young, and I was so bullish in the way I was trying to catch them. I used to literally just chuck lumps of meat and lobworms at them, and I expected them to turn and grab hold of it, and they didn't. They were wise, I was clumsy, and eventually I learnt my trade and caught some big uns along the way. So the fact that they were so difficult for me, yet commanded so much attention from me when I was a kid, they're always going to be up there amongst my favourite species. Well, how is that for an absolutely blinding result? We've been here a couple of hours, and if I was on the feeder, I might have got a bite, but I can guarantee it probably would have only been 1 or 2. But in the last couple of hours, I've had 6 chub from £2 to not far off £6, and it's been absolutely magic. But dusk is approaching, and I'm feeling another wander out to that island, because I think there's a few more bites off that one. Magic.
I came from the mud, there's dirt on my hands. Strong like a tree, there's roots where I stand. Oh, I've been running from the law.
This may look exclusive, but anyone can book this stretch, and any stretch that Angling Dreams or the Why Not Us Foundation run. 2 of you come on, you pay 40 or 50 quid, and it is literally yours for the day. It's not cheap, but to pay for that exclusivity is what makes it so special.
Try to catch me howling at the moon.
When we spotted this swim, I called it biblical, which is quite bold, and I'll tell you what, it's been every bit biblical. We've got everything that I look for in a swim on the Wye. Wading, epic bites, amazing fights, and now we've had an absolute belter. It just don't get any better for me.
Hope they won't shoot me down soon. They say no to sleepless night. Will you find me? Hope you find me.
I told you we'd have some fun. Thank you very much, darling. What an amazing ending.